So the defining feature of democracy from this information perspective isn't just voting.
It's having robust self-correcting mechanisms. Checks on the center's power, assuming everyone, leaders included, can make mistakes.
And elections are presented not as truth-finding exercises.
No, more as ways to adjudicate conflicting desires and maintain order. The climate change example is key. The majority can vote against climate action, but that doesn't make the science untrue. They shouldn't get to fire scientists for believing it.
Which means independent institutions, academia, media, judiciary are crucial for pursuing truth.
And for overriding the majority will sometimes on fundamental things like human rights.
This is where populism often clashes, right? That suspicion of independent institutions overriding the will of the people.
Yes. Populism often feels skepticism about those institutions, sometimes even about objective truth itself, the idea that power is the only reality. This erodes the trust needed for democracy's self-correction.
If trust collapses, democracy is fragile. Though, interestingly, the source notes if populism also erodes trust in the strongmen,
It could potentially lead towards anarchy instead.
and we need to look beyond just elections to see if a system is truly democratic.
Absolutely. Do genuine checks on power exist? Are there real self-correcting mechanisms? Or is it just a facade?
Okay, let's move into what feels like the most, well, future-facing part. AI and the new information network. This seems like a different beast altogether.
It really does. The key distinction made is previous inventions, even powerful ones like bombs, were tools. Humans made the decisions. AI is different.
How so?
AI processes information and can make independent decisions. It can replace humans in decision-making roles. It's presented not just as a tool, but as a new kind of agent. It can even generate new ideas.
And it's already happening. AI making decisions about loans, jobs, even prison sentences.
And the source suggests this will accelerate, making our lives increasingly shaped by systems we might not fully understand.
Trusting AI to make wise choices. That's framed as a huge gamble.
Much bigger than older myths or tech. AI could potentially alter evolution itself.
Revisiting totalitarianism here. Dictators might actually fear AI.
Because you can't control it with fear or censorship like a human agent. AI doesn't feel fear. Terror tactics don't work on algorithms.
Imagine an AI pointing out inconvenient truths to a dictator.
Or finding patterns that expose corruption. But the flip side is authoritarian regimes, used to believing in their leaders' infallibility, might dangerously project that onto AI. If that infallible AI makes a mistake.
And there's no self-correction. It could be catastrophic.
Exactly.
And for democracy, introducing AI agents, bots into the public square.
It could be incredibly disruptive. If there's no agreement on how to manage these new voices, it could lead towards chaos, maybe anarchy. Regulation becomes critical.
A huge challenge seems to be the sheer unfathomability of AI.
Yes. Its complexity can make its decision-making process opaque, impossible for humans to fully grasp why it did what it did.
The source calls computers bureaucratic natives.
Yeah, naturally good at rules, regulations, finding loopholes with superhuman speed. Algorithms can sift through vast data to find correlations we'd never spot, defining new criteria for things like suspicion.
And this gets tricky with bias, doesn't it?
Definitely. Algorithms might find correlations, say, phone model and loan risk, that reflect historical biases in the data, even if not explicitly coded.
Perpetuating inequality.
Potentially, yes. Though the source also notes, maybe by using more data points, AI could sometimes avoid certain narrow human prejudices. It's complex. But that core unfathomability, it fuels distrust.
Makes people vulnerable to simple explanations, conspiracy theories, maybe charismatic leaders promising easy answers.
And it makes it hard to tell stories about these systems because they don't follow our usual human plots.
Just like bureaucracy was hard to depict, now add algorithms.
AI can create stories itself. Compose, curate, interpret new narratives, maybe even new scriptures. Like Q drops, the source speculates about potential AI involvement.
Humans might treat AI like an infallible talking holy book.
The temptation could be there. The Blake Lemoine Lambda story showed how easily we project feelings and consciousness onto AI, even if it's just sophisticated pattern matching.
The danger being we end up living inside the dreams of an alien intelligence.
A reality shaped by computer logic, maybe fundamentally alien to us. AI already creates intercomputer realities like Google rankings that affect the real world, maybe even new financial things like crypto.
And computer networks enable mass surveillance on a totally different scale.
Compared to, say, Ceausescu's Romania with its human informants, AI makes it vastly easier. No need for millions of agents. AI analyzes the data stream, We kill people based on metadata.
Chilling. Examples like facial recognition in China for social control or finding people.
Or even peer-to-peer surveillance like online reviews. Privacy gets eroded. Power shifts dramatically to network controllers.
This leads to the idea of a reputation market.
Yeah, moving from nuanced, hard-to-quantify social reputation to precise numerical scores based on online actions or social credit systems.
Like China's social credit system, aims to build trust, fight scams.
But heavily criticized as demeaning, intrusive, turning life into a performance. The analogy used is Stalin's force clapping creating conformity through fear, not reflecting truth.
And social media algorithms, optimizing for engagement.
Which often means optimizing for outrage, clicks, shares. The YouTube example is potent algorithms recommending extreme or conspiracy content because it keeps people watching.
Fueling radicalization?
Potentially, yes. And tech companies often deflect, saying they just host content, ignoring their algorithms' active role in shaping emotions and discourse. The dictatorship of the like.
Then there's the huge challenge, the AI alignment problem.
Making sure powerful AI goals align with human values. It's more dangerous now because AI networks could be vastly more powerful than old bureaucracies.
The thought experiments help here, the paperclip maximizer.
Or the boat race algorithm. Giving AI a poorly defined goal like win or make paperclips can lead to disaster because good or win aren't obvious to an algorithm. They need careful, formal definition, which is incredibly hard.
And AI is less likely to say, wait, this seems wrong.
It just executes the goal, potentially ruthlessly.
So how do we define an ultimate goal for AI? Maximize well-being. The source looks at ethical frameworks.
Deontology, like Kant's rules, struggles with defining humanity. Would a Kantian computer decide humans aren't relevant because they don't fit a rule? The Eichmann example shows the danger of rigid rule following.
Utilitarianism maximizing good.
Too complex to calculate often becomes a justification for short-term pain for future gain, like Stalinism or extreme libertarianism. Another mythology, perhaps.
And this all has geopolitical implications, an AI arms race.
Already happening. Governments see AI as strategic value, like industrial tech led to imperialism.
Could lead to a new imperial era or a split world.
A silicon curtain dividing digital empires, maybe USU versus China. The ImageNet cat recognition example is key here.
How so?
That seemingly harmless tech for identifying cats can be instantly repurposed for facial recognition, surveillance, identifying Palestinians, enforcing hijab laws, shows the dual-use nature. Data and research location matter. Where you live might determine which side of the silicon curtain you're on.
Finally, AI brings up the mind-body problem again.
Are humans just algorithms? Can consciousness be uploaded? Ancient questions with a new technological twist.
People might choose to live more online, seeing it as liberation.
Possibly. But can you truly be anyone online? The source raises a doubt, pointing back to the biased facial recognition algorithm.
The one that struggled with dark-skinned faces.
Showing how algorithms inherit bias from data. Historical inequalities get baked into the digital future, affecting who gets seen, who exists online.
Wow. That journey took us from ancient myths and scrolls all the way to, well, algorithms and potential digital empires. Let's try and distill some of the core insights from the material we've covered.
Okay, first, human power comes from cooperation, enabled by information networks, not lone genius.
Second, information connects, fundamentally. But connection doesn't automatically mean truth. Networks often prioritize order over truth.
Third, stories and the intersubjective realities they build, gods, nations, money, are crucial for large-scale cooperation. But fiction's simplicity makes it ripe for manipulation.
Fourth, written documents and bureaucracy created new realities of distant control. But these systems are often complex and hard for humans to grasp.
Fifth, attempts at infallible tech like holy books failed because interpretation always requires fallible human institutions.
Sixth, science thrives precisely because it embraces fallibility and self-correction, unlike institutions claiming infallibility.
Seventh, information flow shapes politics. Centralized in dictatorships, decentralized with self-correction in democracies. Technology scaled both.
Eighth, AI is a new kind of agent making independent decisions, creating potentially unfathomable systems and maybe new mythologies.
Ninth, computer networks enable unprecedented surveillance, eroding privacy, and shifting power dynamics dramatically.
10th, Algorithms optimizing for engagement can amplify outrage and radicalize users, a sort of dictatorship of the like.
11th, aligning AI with human values is a massive challenge due to AI's nature and the difficulty of defining universal ethics.
12th, the AI race could reshape geopolitics, leading to digital empires and a silicon curtain.
And finally, AI forces new questions about identity, consciousness, and the risk of embedding historical biases into our digital future via training data.
And the source emphasizes technology isn't destiny. Societies choose how to use it. But the AI revolution poses unique risks, maybe requiring adaptation as disruptive as imperialism or totalitarianism were for the Industrial Revolution.
A sobering thought.
Definitely. Okay, that covers a lot of ground. Let's wrap up by pulling together some of the key drawbacks, shortcomings, and critical points about these information networks, old and new, as highlighted in the source material itself.
Right. The author isn't just describing, there's a clear critique woven through. A central one is that historical tendency for networks to value order above truth,
Which leads to powerful but potentially unwise systems with distorted views. Ancient tax records, religious dogma, political propaganda, secret police files.
all prioritizing function or control over accuracy.
Yeah.
And that naive idea that just more information equals more truth, explicitly called out as wrong, even dangerous.
The tools themselves, stories, intersubjective beliefs, are double-edged, great for cooperation.
But also perfect for manipulation, branding, justifying inequality. The contrast between systems claiming infallibility, like the church example, and those embracing self-correction, like science, really highlights the danger of institutions unable to admit fault.
Then there's bureaucracy necessary, maybe, but inherently hard for humans to relate to or understand fully, alienating.
Which Kafka captured. And AI just dials that up significantly. Its unfathomability makes trusting regulatory systems harder, maybe pushing people towards simpler, potentially misleading narratives or leaders.
And the combination of AI-driven surveillance, peer monitoring, and engagement-maximizing algorithms
Creates this environment where privacy vanishes, radicalization is amplified, and discourse gets warped by the dictatorship of the like. Serious drawbacks.
The source also flags the specific danger for authoritarian regimes trying to control AI. Terror doesn't work on code.
But their tendency to believe in infallibility makes them vulnerable to trusting a flawed AI catastrophically, especially without self-correction mechanisms.
Plus, AI development often starts in the private sector, focused on profit, not necessarily public good.
And we saw how easily historical biases get embedded in AI through data, reinforcing old problems in new ways.
Treating AI like an infallible oracle, a talking holy book, is framed as incredibly risky.
Especially given the sheer power these networks could wield, the potential damage from errors is so much greater than in the past.
And the source seems quite pessimistic about international cooperation on AI safety.
Yeah, the difficulty of defining values, the realist view of international competition, the risk of AI being weaponized for social manipulation, it paints a challenging picture.
It really leaves you feeling that while information networks have always been powerful, the nature of AI, its complexity, its agency presents challenges on a whole new scale.
A truly new territory, potentially very risky. Which brings us back to you, the listener. Considering how these networks have always wrestled with truth versus order.
And now facing AI systems built on potentially alien logic. Here's where it gets really interesting.
What does all this mean for your ability to understand, to navigate the world around you in the coming years?
When the information you encounter is increasingly complex, maybe biased, maybe generated by non-human agents, how can you cultivate your own critical thinking? How do you seek truth and understand the forces shaping your reality in that environment? It's a big question to wrestle with.